Before we begin, I want to take a moment to remind you about the upcoming Moving Titan Retreat, October 2nd through the 4th in Tampa, Florida. This will be the only large-scale independent moving conference in North America this year, and you are not going to want to miss this opportunity to hear from 8- and 9-figure moving and home service entrepreneurs and experts while masterminding with up to 500 moving company owners. We're bringing back Tommy Mello, Sean Crane, and Reagan Weiss for 2.5 days, and this isn't going to be some motivational rah-rah event. We are specifically focusing on tactical strategies that you can immediately take home and start multiplying your business headed into the fall and winter. And make sure that you never have another slow winter and off season again. We'll have more networking opportunities, more vendors setting up displays, and a full day workshop on day 3 where you can work directly one-on-one with Tommy and the other speakers to dial in your business. There might even be some surprise guests and entertainment. But don't wait to lock in your tickets. Early bird tickets are the lowest they will ever be, and prices go up August 1st. Visit movingtitanretreats.com. That's movingtitanretreats.com, or check the link in the description and lock in your tickets before the prices go up or before we sell out, because we will sell out. I'll see you there. At Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, we are Team SmartMoving. This has been the CRM that we have used for the last 4 years, and it has grown right alongside with us. I love all the features, all the reporting tools, how easy it makes to schedule, book, sell, dispatch crews. It really is an intuitive software. It's really dialed in without the bugs and the glitches that we've experienced with other softwares in the past. So it still amazes me if a company is not using a CRM. I still find companies that are doing it the old-fashioned way with spreadsheets and calendars and notes and handwriting job orders, and you don't have to do that with SmartMoving. That's a bottleneck that's holding you back if that's you. So make the switch to SmartMoving, whether you're using a CRM or not. It truly is the smartest move you'll ever make, just like we tell our clients that we're the smartest move you'll ever make. So check out SmartMoving today and schedule your free demo. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I have got a very special guest here for you today. Somebody that I go back a couple years with, came to one of our early Moving Titan retreats in the Airbnb, and somebody who's light years ahead of a lot of us that are listening, including ourselves. He's built an amazing business. And somebody I've been trying to get on the podcast for a while, but he's had a lot going on lately, and I'm going to let him tell you more a little bit about that. We've got Brian Slater with New City Moving out of the windy city of Chicago. And I've got a lot of family from the Chicago area. My family's originally all from Illinois, and a lot of them still live up there. I was, of course, born and raised here in Florida, and I know you now have a home in Florida as well.
I do.
And we've been trying to get together for a while. So thanks for coming on to the podcast. I'm really excited to pick your brain here today, Brian.
Very happy to be here, and very happy to open up a Two College Brothers in the sweet state of Illinois. Let's get it going.
It could happen one day. We'd love to get a franchise up there. But so let's go ahead. I know a little bit about your story. We've had some late night discussions at the past Moving Titan retreats, but I don't know if I've got the full story. So why don't we just go ahead and kick it off from the beginning? Tell me a little bit about what brought you into the moving industry, what your background looks like, and how you've built a massive company out of Chicago. I mean, arguably the biggest independent moving company in Chicago. Is that correct?
I think biggest in the Midwest, I think, when it comes to independents, non-van line affiliated and things of that nature. I know that in regards to revenue, there are likely people that are bigger, but we're like non-GSA, non-military, sort of just like your local long distance of residential mover.
Okay. And what kind of revenue bracket are you guys in currently?
I think about 25 million, right in the ballpark, just a little south of 25 million, but not enough to say 24 million.
And how many trucks does it take to run a $25 million operation?
Typically, our busiest day of the year will be dispatching about 138 trucks with about 325 guys, give or take.
Wow.
men and young ladies that go on the trucks.
That is quite the operation. So tell me, how did you start off in the moving space? And I know you've got a really inspirational story from the beginning. I want to hear it in your words. And how did you grow this behemoth that you're operating now?
Absolutely. So I started New City Moving in August of, well, we'll go back to the original. I actually was in high school and I determined about a weekend that it really wasn't for me. So I decided to drop out, get my GED. At that point, I was in a newspaper looking for an opportunity in order to find a job. And I came across this ad that says, looking for unlimited earning potential, try a rewarding career in moving company sales. I'm pretty sure everybody wants a rewarding career and unlimited earning potential, right?
Absolutely. Who
So I
wouldn't?
think it sounded good to me. And I was like, let's give it a wing. So I went to work for a company in Illinois and I had quickly raised through the ranks to sales manager after about 6 or 8 months. And after about a year to a year and a half of that, I decided to sort of branch off, a little bit of a dispute over some commission checks, whatever. So I decided to branch out and I was doing something similar to what Tim Krupp was doing over at MoveBees. And I started doing something similar to that when I was probably about 19, 20 years old after I had a couple years under my belt in the moving industry. And I always knew that I was good at hiring people that could provide a good sale, give accurate quotes, be friendly with the consumer, follow up well, provide good customer service. But I was sort of at the mercy of the carriers that we were working with in regards to doing things ethically and showing up on time, taking responsibility for claims. So one day in my office, I was standing outside with one of our early employees named Nick, and I saw this, I think it's a Miller High Life truck or a Miller Light truck drive by, and it had this really badass Chicago flag logo on the side. And I was like, man, I wonder if that would be something, since I'm from Chicago's inner city, I wonder if there could be a brand in Chicago that's very like the guy next door, knows the area from Chicago for Chicago, and can provide job opportunities to people in the area. At the time, this was sort of August of 2009, sort of predates Yelp or the early stages of Yelp and Google reviews. So we noticed that movers were reliant on other sources and weren't necessarily review dependent. So the state of the industry was one that wasn't always as ethical as what I would have wanted. So I guess on that day, New City was born. 8 months later, we get the license in 2009. We drive up to Indianapolis, and there's a gentleman there selling a Hino truck for I think about 10,000 bucks. At the time, I probably had 10,000 bucks to my name. So I quickly found out that the dude needed a hip replacement surgery. I asked him what his copay was. He said 5,000. I said, I have $5,000 in an envelope. Will you take a chance on me with this truck? He did. We drove it back from Indianapolis. And after that day, New City was born.
Wow. And so that was what year again?
August of 2009.
Gotcha. And so you grew up in the inner city of Chicago.
Logan Square area for all those listeners.
Okay. So yeah, for anybody familiar with Chicago, Logan Square, and
It's now a lovely place.
that's kind of a rough and tumble area. Yeah, I was going to say you kind of went through the school of hard knocks. It sounds like, and you dropped out of high school to take this job.
Yeah. So my earning potential ever since I started working and moving, I saw was really high for all those people listening or trying to look for a career inside of moving. It is a very demanding job, but if you do it right and if you keep customers satisfied and if you're successful at it, we all know that there's a ton of money to be made in this industry.
Absolutely. I always love to say it's a low barrier to entry, but it's a high barrier to success. And I think that a lot of that's because you get a lot of people that get into moving that, think that all they need is a truck and they have a strong back and they can go move some boxes. And there's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, you are truly running a business, a people business. I always equate like our inventory to how many great people that we can have. I mean, trucks, of course, play a factor, but you can always go rent a truck. And to build a great culture, you can't just go rent in movers. And a lot of movers get that wrong. A lot of movers will hire day labor, they'll hire 1099s, they'll scrape the bottom of the barrel because it is a physically demanding job. I mean, it's tough work and it can be grunt work. It's a grind, but it's all about, bringing in the people with good attitudes and getting them trained up to aptitude. I mean, take me a little bit down the journey that you went on from the day that you brought that truck home and started New City to multiplying it over 100x and becoming a huge company that's since struck a deal with some private equity and allowed you to really take care of your family in an amazing way. I mean, you're living the dream that so many people that are listening to this, including myself, want to live and aspire to be like. I mean, what was that process like of growing and scaling and getting to the place that you are here today?
I would be lying if I said that the first 10 years weren't the most tumultuous times that I can humanly possibly think of. I would be absolutely lying if I said that I wasn't going on dates or seeing members of my family. If I told you that I didn't make schedules every Christmas night and Thanksgiving Day, and wasn't texting 20, 30, 40, 50 people at the time. The first 5 years had me running everything but sales because I knew how to sort of train and hire for that right away. So at the time, I would say the first 5 years, I was sort of recruiting, running dispatch, I was doing claims and general office admin. I would say that I was running. We did have one person that was running sales. We did have one person that was an office manager that were sort of like the cornerstone, and then an in home estimator. But yeah, that was sort of the cornerstone of the company. And then I quickly realized, well, I think most people's entry point to this business might be that they worked in the trucks and then made the jump kind of into the office and into company ownership. I think that my path was a little bit different. I was never one that was on the trucks. I was more of like interested in sales and marketing. So really what I did was we started out moving sort of college dormitories for people like Northwestern, DePaul, UIC, and places like that. So that was sort of our entry point until we started to figure out our identity as a company. Our identity has since been we are the company in Illinois, maybe with the exception of one other one. Shout out to the professionals. So we are one of two companies I can think of in Chicago that if you're moving a 5-bedroom house and you need some packing, like these two companies, you want those people inside of your house. And we found our identity along the way, starting as that college dorm mover and then sort of figuring out what we were good at and sort of evolving over time. So the first 5 years had me doing majority of the administrative payroll just on my back. So this way we could save money. In that first 5 years, I think we jumped from, let's call it 1 to 60 trucks in the first 5 years, with me primarily running sales process, marketing, going out to buy all these trucks from private sellers. For all those listening, trucks are very expensive now, but it wasn't always that way. And yeah, so I just front loaded a lot of that stuff on myself. As we grew past 60 trucks, it was quite apparent that even in Chicago, with X amount of million people that we have, it was quite apparent that I was never going to break past 60 trucks unless I became a great marketer instead of a good marketer. So I would work 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. And then I would go on to websites like SEMrush or websites like Moz Forums or websites like Warrior Forum. And I was researching marketing incessantly because I knew that that was a great way to get in front of the customer. Even to this day, Wade, I look at your Instagram and I am jealous of the amount of on the ground, bootstrapped sort of business development that you're doing because we were founded and still continue to be kind of a one trick pony in digital. We're working with Eric Works over at USA Home Listings and we're adding some of the postcards now. But yeah, we just got really good at digital. I just got really good at digital, continue to sharpen my knife, and leads continue to flow in. So I think now we likely move about 14,000 people a year and we generate something like 5x those amount of leads. So the company can really grow as much as we want it to grow. And we're typically bottlenecked more so on the labor portion than we are on the lead generation side because we have not made the conscious decision to say, like, we're willing to. Obviously, when you have 300 guys, you don't have the all-star team anymore. You have the entire NBA, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but we've not made the decision to say, hey, we want to make this into a 200 truck company and then know that 100 of those trucks that are on the road are probably driven by somebody that hasn't been trained to do such. And you're being delivered movers that probably don't know how to pack and move. So it's always been controlled.
No, that makes sense. And, kind of touching on the fact that you dove so hard into digital marketing, it came to the realization during this last economic slowdown with the interest rates kind of going up and the whole moving industry kind of dropping back about 30% over the last year that, 10 years ago, if you had a dominant digital marketing presence, the best SEO, you were doing the PPC, you had the social media stuff going. I mean, back then, it was a lot easier to promote on social media because the algorithms didn't filter out a lot of the self promotions. So you
That's
could just
absolutely correct.
it would get a lot of eyeballs. But SEO's changed a lot over the last decade. The black hat link building days and stuff like that now penalizes you. And there was a period where that was beneficial to an extent. We used to post incessantly on Craigslist in the beginning because we'd get a ton of business through that.
With your little keywords at the bottom, your keyword cloud at the bottom.
Yeah, I used to tell one of my managers that smoked cigarettes, which bad habit, don't do that, but he did. And I said, listen, every time you go to light up a cigarette, post an ad on Craigslist because it used to be free in our markets. Now it costs.
Oh yeah, I would have bought that guy a carton a day.
Yeah, exactly. So every time, just think of it like every time you get that urge, like go post the Craigslist ad because we just tried to stay at the top. I got creative with like the HTML and the pictures to make our ads more appealing and stuff like that. And that was back then, it worked. And when we moved to Tampa originally, I thought that's what we had to do because it was working really well in Gainesville. I was kind of running a little bit of a location in Sarasota that I would manage when I was back home or out of Venice, Sarasota, same area. When I was back home, my dad actually in the beginning was kind of the operations manager for Sarasota. And we tried to kind of have those two locations going until I realized, I just want to focus on one and get really good at it until it's time to open up another one and I feel comfortable with it. And I thought we could come into Tampa and just make all the Facebook posts and post all on Craigslist every day and that we could open a second location with that. And I was in for a rude awakening and I had no choice but to learn the back end of SEO and postcards and all these other different things to stand out in a very crowded marketplace. But I like to, I came to this realization that, 10 years ago, you just had to be dominant online. Now it's expected, back before that, you had the yellow pages and you had your local reputation in your community and the grassroots efforts and the connections. And then when this revolution around the time that you started to develop online where everybody ditched the yellow pages and, stopped asking as much for recommendations and just went online to search for things and got in that habit of doing it, you could be dominant and gain an edge on your competition. And now I feel like it's kind of come full circle where that's an expectation to have a dominant presence online and to do the daily social media posting and to do that correct SEO that is a lot more complicated now and the correct, playing into the algorithms. You have to do that stuff because people still go to those places. But in order to truly stand out, especially in a tight market like we're going into right now, post-COVID, you gotta go back to those grassroots efforts and build those relationships with the realtors and the property managers and the apartment complexes and the mortgage brokers and the title agencies. And so when you say that you see me posted on social media, that's to just kill two birds with one stone by having that presence and then B, just kind of document the journey and actually hold my own self accountable to going out and do that and inspire my team to do it and hopefully inspire some other people to do it too.
I think our realtor referrals, if we would have taken that more seriously and didn't give preference to digital back in the day, I only think of what our realtor referrals would have actually been. Like if we were cookies and handshakes 15 years ago, I wonder how that would have snowballed till today.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think whatever you did obviously worked because you've been able to scale and grow tremendously. But, if you were to spend more time going to all the networking groups at night, you may not have learned as much about those forums, and all the different amounts of SEO strategy. Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part, this resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email. One of the worst parts about owning a moving company has to be finding quality movers and drivers. Trying to run all the job ads takes up time, and then you schedule guys to come in for interviews and they never show up. It's a massive headache. Well, let me tell you about a good friend of mine named Winston who runs a company called Move Up Consulting.
MoveUp specializes in hiring and recruiting for the moving and storage industry, and they do all the lead generation for mover and driver candidates. They have a fully built hiring CRM, plus you get a dedicated account manager who phone interviews and screens all of your candidates. Once they find qualified candidates, they schedule in-person interviews for you and your management team so you can make great hires. They even handle all the appointment confirmations. It's that simple. To start building a better moving team today, visit moveupconsulting.com and tell them Wade sent you.
Want to know what the silver bullet for growing your business is? USA Home Listings. USA Home Listings has a myriad of marketing services that are essential to every single moving company. It blows my mind when I have conversations with people who reach out looking for help, trying to get leads, trying to get the phone to ring, that aren't doing mailers and aren't subscribed to USA Home Listings. The data there is so invaluable, and it's not just home listing data, even though that's an awesome, super easy, super intuitive feature that they provide where you can filter out all of the homes that recently went under contract or got listed in your neighborhood, and a new coming soon feature before it even hits the MLS that you can filter out through zip codes, towns, cities, counties, prices. But that's just one small feature that they do. They also have turnkey mailing services. They'll help you design your postcard, a postcard that actually gets results. If you've tried mailers in the past and it didn't work, it's probably because you didn't have the right elements on your postcard. And they also have a social media division. So check out usahomelistings.com. It's an essential addition to all of your marketing needs. Before you do any other marketing, check out usahomelistings.com. So did you primarily build out your website and SEO yourself rather than hire an agency in those early days? And then are you currently still involved with that or have an in-house team doing all that stuff? Or is that something?
So I would say the last 2 years, we've switched to more of an in-house approach. But I would say that the first 5, 6, 7 years were all me doing all SEO and SEM myself. So that was back when Link Exchange worked. We were doing a ton of that with businesses and vendors and stuff like that. Outreach to different universities now and everything like that. And then I would say I hit a glass ceiling probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I started working with an agency that did some on-page optimizations because I just wasn't seeing the overall dominance that I wanted to see. And I think that they were able to help me break a glass ceiling. And now I think our site is generating something like 20,000 unique visitors per month by way of organic SEO. As you know, though, even as people start to think about SEO now, the game has changed in such a way that even if we are number one for every single keyword term inside of the Chicago surrounding areas, suburbs, everything, back in the day when we were number one, we got the lion's share, let's call it 86% of every click on that keyword term. And now we're competing against generative AI for a lot of that space at the top. We're competing against LSA. We're competing against our own map packs. We're competing against PPC. So even as we think about SEO now, long gone are the days of you getting the lion's share of those clicks, because obviously Google was not getting a piece of the kitty. So as you think about SEO now, I see it as more supplemental instead of the main driver. I think we were able to put up like 17 million with like a couple 100,000 in spend in marketing. And then to get the extra ground to the 25, we're probably at $700,000 or $800,000 worth of marketing because we needed to add a PPC component. But we're only a company that added a Google PPC ads account, I don't know, like 18 months ago.
Wow. We, kind of similar. We focused a lot on the SEO and we were ranking in the maps for Gainesville and Tampa and for a lot of different keywords for blog posts and city pages. And we just recently started doing LSA. We tried doing PPC multiple times over the years and never saw a huge ROI on the traditional PPC stuff. Sometimes it would break even. Sometimes, one market would do okay. In the off season, it would help keep trucks on the road, but it tended to be a lot smaller moves, a lot lower conversion rates. And for what we were spending, I really wanted to make PPC work because it's just that dial that you can turn up. And when we opened our San Antonio franchise earlier this year, we didn't start off doing any PPC or LSA. We were trying to do all the same stuff we did in Tampa and Gainesville and do in Tampa and Gainesville with the postcards, the grassroots stuff, building out that SEO. But the SEO is a long game. That's a new market and it's trending in the right direction and taking time. But it wasn't until we're like, okay, we got to figure out something else to get the phone to ring over here because the SEO is going to take a while. The grassroots and the relationships can take a while. Postcards, are moving really slow with the housing market right now. What else can we do? So we did some research, got some recommendations, and we teamed up with a company called Ferocious Media to do the LSA. And that was like the silver bullet. Now, all of a sudden, sales are doubling and we're booking jobs every day over there. And so we're doing that in Tampa and Gainesville now. And the LSA seems to be very strong. And I think
love LSA.
Yeah.
LSA. For your listeners out there, go ahead and dispute those things. Listen to those things.
Mhm.
Get your mom on the phone, right? Get your grandma on the phone. Have them listen to those things to make sure they're valid. So this way you're requesting for that money to come back to you in the event that it's not a fully valid call because their algo doesn't always pick it up.
Right.
I don't know if this is a good baseline or not because I don't speak marketing with all that many people, but right now, by way of LSA and with PPC, we're at a blended 12.7 ROAS.
That's great.
So I think that that's pretty good. I don't know how other people do in PPC and LSA just because it hasn't, I've honestly been too busy in order to get together and I'm looking forward to the Titan retreat, by the way. So I'm looking forward to just meeting some people and chopping it up. I really haven't had a chance to do that, but I think 12.7 is where we're at right now. And after we get past our contribution margin, Wade, so after we get past that, like right when we get into the sweet spot, just above that 2.2, 2.5 in revenue per month, at that point, our net margins skyrocket and we're just printing money. And at that point, it behooves us in order to push that additional top line revenue with LSA and with PPC. I think we're the only moving company in the United States that probably has a higher ROAS on PPC than LSA. If any of my sales reps are listening, please help me understand that. Maybe we should hold a meeting next week. But yeah, we do better on PPC than LSA, but I don't know why.
That is interesting. And it could be a market thing. Maybe some markets are better geared towards, one or the other. And just for the listeners, ROAS is return on ad spend. And when you say 12 on that, that's a 12x return on ad spend. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct. Yeah. So if we spend $10 on ads, it will return $120 worth of top line revenue.
And is that for PPC or LSA or combined?
That's all blended. So it's probably a 15 for I don't have my numbers in front of me, but I think it's like a 15 for PPC and probably like a 10 on the LSA portion.
Okay.
And then that's all unbranded. So I think the branded should do 22 to 25 times ROAS when people are searching specifically for New City, which we do bid on just to protect our own real estate.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And when you say 2.2 to 2.5, you mentioned those numbers and then the margins go way up. That's like a 2.2 to 2.5x return on that spend is
after we get to about $2 million to $2.2 million in revenue for the month.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, our break even is unfortunately, our break even is like $1 million. So we can do $1 million in business and just kind of break even. We have, 8 sales reps, 5 people doing virtuals, 3 people in the warehouse. When you're doing 14,500 moves, like there's a collections person for people that are that need to set up terms for their storage or something. Somebody reconciling BOLs, a 2-person claims department, 5 people in dispatch that cover 3 shifts, material handlers that just stock all 130 of the trucks every night to make sure that the guys can just roll out in the morning. So there's a lot of infrastructure that goes around this. We do take a hit in the winter because we do keep everybody on. So we do have, months where you can lose a couple $100,000. But I would rather roll into the summer with all of my helicopters and tanks than coming into a summer season with all rookies every year.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are some big numbers. And I think a lot of the listeners, when you aspire to be a $25 million company, you have to carry a lot of costs. And that can be scary for some people. Sometimes if you don't have it dialed in at a small scale, just because you're making more money, it could mean bigger problems. And then you risk, the seasonality of the business. I learned over the last year to try to run our company so that we can be profitable in the slowest month, because for years we were kind of doing the same thing. We're laying the groundwork and bringing on all this extra infrastructure in the summertime to support everything. And then we get to the off season and we'd expect to probably lose a little bit of money in some of those off season months because we knew we'd make it all back in the summer. And, that can get really stressful, and you have to have some tough conversations. You have to repurpose some people back onto the trucks if they're used to working in the warehouse or dispatch. And I realized, this past year when the interest rates went up and we saw the business kind of drop from the traditional sources that, what if we just structure this business to run profitably in our slowest month? And then once we get to our busier months, we may not take on as much sales volume because we'll have less staffing and infrastructure, but it's going to cause a lot less problems. And it's actually going to be more profitable business in the summertime, even with less sales that are being generated. And then we don't have all that stress going into the slow season, or if the market goes down or the interest rates go up or whatever the case may be, because we basically focus more on quality over quantity and keeping good people in place, because that can be a challenge in the winter. You have good drivers that aren't getting hours, or you have, to have those conversations and lay off departments, and then you have to rebuild it all over again. I mean, to have a successful summer, you have to have A+ rock star team in the winter, because when you do start to hire and recruit and bring in more people to the team, you don't want to have to develop them, that culture from the ground up. And you don't want to have to
Oh, hell yeah. I will screw my gross margins and net margins on winter moves in order to keep 3 drivers together.
Yeah.
Because I know in the summer, they sort of split off into 3 different groups. And now I have each group doing $30,000 of revenue per month times 3 groups is $90,000 in revenue per month. So we'll triple up on drivers, and the methodology seems to work for us. And then we have a saying. I don't know if it's we that have a saying. I have a saying, and I don't want it to seem brash, but at New City Moving, we only water trees in the winter that will fruit bear for us in the summer.
I like that.
We take an evaluation of everybody that was great for us throughout the summer season, and we make sure to give accolades and attaboys and bonuses to everybody that crushed it for us all summer long. But then that if the juice is not worth the squeeze, then carrying somebody through winter, it just really isn't ethical for them or for you if you know that it's not going to work and you're sort of keeping them stagnant in a place that might not be the best use of their potential.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. You got to keep your good people happy. And if they're a top performer, if they're an A player, we tell people that there's always going to be an opportunity for you. And you take those A players from the summertime, you trim the fat if you've brought on some people over that period, or maybe people aren't performing like they were at one point. And you give the opportunities to the people that perform the best. And instead of trying to make everybody happy, sometimes it's going to be impossible to keep every single person happy. But if there's a good mutual relationship with your A+ players, put those guys together on the trucks and give them first priority on the jobs, and you'll naturally kind of weed out, some of those lower performing people. And then that culture and that work ethic and that training rubs off on the new hires come springtime. So, you still put them through an onboarding process as you bring on more people, but now they're going out on moves with experienced quality guys that carry your core values with them and teach them the good habits. And it just sets you up for a much stronger summer. And it's a lot more fair to those new people coming on to get that mentorship from those more experienced veterans that are your A team and your A players. And it helps mold them into A players. So hopefully they can stay on going into the offseason.
Absolutely. We always like to take the newer guys and sort of bury them in the bottom of a 5 or 6 man crew. This way they can start doing boxes and just getting some of the chowder out of the way. So this way, the guys can lift the furniture and they can sort of start from there on up. We will skew 2-man crews that are a little bit less experienced. We will skew them towards 2-man crews, which are smaller moves. And then the more experienced guys are just doing the 1 5-man crew a day or something. The way that we structure it is 2-man crews do about 4 moves per day. 3-man crews do 3 moves per day. 2-man crews do 4 moves per day. And 5 and up crews will do 1 move per day.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And do you have a budget for marketing for people? You mentioned you're only able to take on about 20% of the leads that come into your site. And so I imagine you just must always be hiring, because like we kind of talked about before, that's your inventory is the good people. Tell me about do you what we do is we'll have like a marketing budget for new customers, but we also have a marketing budget for new team members.
Yep.
Just always be hiring and looking to replace our worst, basically. I mean, what's yours?
Our fully burdened cost just for the marketing component in order to bring somebody through the door is probably about low $60 by the time that we actually hire somebody. So we have a recruiter named Andy, Andy will bring in somebody in order to do the initial interview. If he likes them and if they pass all of our criteria, then he'll pass them over to Oscar. Oscar in our training has a training course for new foremen, new helpers, moving 101 training. So either one of these guys set up a criteria for checks and balances. The recruiter gets a commission for everybody that stays past 90 days. The trainer gets bonused based on a reduction of claims year over year. So the trainer doesn't want to just bring trash into the company. The recruiter doesn't want to give the trainer anybody that's going to get kicked out of the company and not going to stay. So it creates this symbiotic relationship of checks and balances between the two. And it's worked out really well for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm taking some notes here as you're saying that. I love that process. I think that's an excellent process. And so about $60, is that counting like the ad spend that you put on all of the hiring platforms and the recruiting efforts, as well as these commissions and bonuses and the time that it takes to onboard and pay those salaries?
Yeah, that is fully burdened up until the point of the commission. So let's say we give $150 for every driver foreman past 90 days, $100 for every foreman past 90 days, $50 for every helper past 90 days. So it just doesn't include those criteria. So a fully burdened cost on a driver foreman would be about $210.
Okay.
And then 160 for a foreman and 110 for a helper.
That makes sense. And the fact that you have that so dialed in, with those specific costs is really important. I think you should look at it just like you'd look at a marketing ROI report and figure out, what does it cost to bring on a new person, and then budget accordingly for that.
All the way from the uniforms to the training
Mm-hmm.
to the Craigslist and Facebook posts and the Indeed posts, all the way to the time for the person to sit and do the interview, and how many people, like what's your conversion rate on people that you bring in, right? So I think it's all really handled the same way that sales is, although you don't want 100% conversion rate on your recruiting efforts. You would want that to be some healthy ratio. And after time, we've created an algo that looks 30 days in the future and sees how many moves we have booked 30 days in the future. And then also looks at historically how many moves and how much revenue we did a year over year for that month. And then we're able to figure out we need this many weekend only crews. We need this many PM crews. We need this many AM crews. We need this many 2, 3, 4-man crews. And we just do things predictively based on last year's results. And then 30 days into the future, how much preloaded we are, what percentage of pre-booked we are.
I think that's really, really smart.
In case you haven't already heard about it, I want to tell you about the latest project that I've been working on called Tighten Up Training. And it's not just me, it's 3 other world-class moving company owners from around North America that have pooled together our resources, our time, and our knowledge to bring you the #1 training program for moving companies in the world. We've got over 200 videos on mover training, sales, culture, leadership, and we're continuing to add more and more to streamline training. We gamify the process in short little videos that are easy for your team to follow, and they're quizzed on retention. Rather than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of your own money and months of your time tying up resources away from your own moving company, we're bringing you Tighten Up Training for less than the cost of 1 damage claim a month, or less than the cost of booking 1 extra move per month. You book 1 extra move, it pays for itself. You save the time to have to take away time from your day or pay somebody to train new employees and to onboard new employees, it pays for itself. You avoid 1 damage claim or book 1 extra move a month, you got it. It pays for itself. It's so affordable. And we put so much time, money, and resources into this to build out something that our companies can use every day so that we can tighten up this summer and reduce claims. Since our company has gone on here, we're booking more jobs than ever, and we're reducing more claims than we've ever had. And we are teed up to have the best summer ever. So check out Tighten Up Training. Schedule a free 30-minute demo today by going to tightenuptraining.com.
And what does the training process look like once they come on? Do you have them doing like virtual training, or is it all hands on? Is there like a warehouse day where they come and they work hands on with somebody in the warehouse? Like, what's that whole onboarding process look like?
Yeah. So our trainer, Oscar, was a long distance driver at New City for probably about 3 years. And he friended me on Facebook and I accepted the request. And then I would have this thing going off of my nightstand every fourth night at like 1 a.m. where this guy's like pinging me Facebook messages. And he's at the hotel over the road and he's like, hey, I'm working with a new guy today and I think they could have done this better. Okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. The guys that wrapped at the pickup, I'm doing a delivery for somebody right now, and I noticed that something could have been wrapped less tight with shrink so that the legs didn't break. Okay, cool. So I started to get these messages, and after about the third or fourth one, I was like, hey, could you come to my office real quick? And he's like, yeah, sounds good. I'll be there tomorrow. And I'm like, you seem to know a lot of the ways that we can improve a lot of things here at this company. Would you mind if I just shadowed you for about a week and let's just go to a couple moves and see how everything's going in the field? And the way that he was respected by his peers and the advice that he's given were all pretty much spot on and commensurate with the way that we do moving. So I was like, hey, do you want this trainer position? Well, how much does it pay? Well, it's salary, but we have this percentage of claims and we have this total payout of claims. And I can give you a healthy portion of any money that you help me save. So then, like, anytime that something's damaged, he'll retrain on that item. Anytime that we have a new employee in, to your original question, right? So we use the Smith system, SMITH, Smith system, and that's what we use for our driver training. So really, we certify every driver that comes through using that Smith system, and then we take them out for a road test and sort of do everything that way. For the foreman, we've created an interactive sort of video that we display on a screen. And then for the basic 101 mover training, that would be mover simulation for approximately 6.5 hours throughout the day, all the way from packing to wrapping, carrying. We use a hump strap in Chicago since we have so many stairs here. For those movers that are not familiar, it's a burlap strap. We don't use any two-wheelers at our company. It's just a old school sort of like this 80-year-old guys that you'd see still in the U-Haul truck. It's kind of how they moved, but like the good guys, you know what I mean? And then we have a facility inside of our office, which acts as a mock apartment. And then we stage all the furniture in that mock apartment to the side. We'll put up between 6 to 8 chairs with tables. And then our instructor and trainer, Oscar, will take them on a little journey. And then after that, they get paired up with a buddy and we're giving good feedback. Over the last 15 years, I've hired 80% of the core guys that we keep year after year. So these guys don't mind picking up a phone and saying, hey, Brian, I saw a guy kick a box on the truck today. For all those that don't know what that means, this guy's like going around kicking boxes to see which one's the lightest. So this way he can pick up that one during his turn, right? Or this new foreman is loading a truck without blanket wrapping and shrink wrapping furniture, which obviously we're not a Craigslist mover here. So anytime that stuff like that's done, and when you have a good relationship inside and outside of work with your guys, I'm not going to say there's a mole on every crew. But what I'm going to say is if you're drinking behind the wheel or doing something that you're not, like it's probably your last day.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think that's really important to have that accountability in place and those checks and balances to, hold everybody accountable, because even good movers slip up sometimes. And they know that somebody's watching and that it's going to get back to the boss or back to the applicable department. That's important. And also, too, you look at it as like an expense investing in these people, but it's really an investment, because not only is it going to reduce your claims, it's going to increase the customer satisfaction, which is naturally going to lead to more repeat referral, word of mouth business, more 5-star Google reviews. So, setting aside a budget and having a solid system like that is so important, because I believe that the best marketing strategy of all of them is to consistently provide that 5-star raving fan experience that is going to prompt people to go tell their friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, colleagues about the experience that they had. So when they move, you're the first person that they think of. And it just, you can almost look at it as a marketing expense for customers, even though it's a marketing expense for staffing. And I think a lot of companies they don't get that. What does the Smith system stand for? I've not heard that before.
I don't know what the acronym stands for. Let me check out the website real quick here. DrivedDifferent.com. So Smith System Driver Improvement Institute. So it's drivedifferent.com. It was actually, we joined a captive. And when we joined this captive through Vanliner, this was recommended to us as a way for us to get added to this captive. So at that time, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, we installed Samsara. We started to do Smith System training. And that was part of the barrier of entry for Vanliner's captive insurance, was us doing those things. And it's actually turned out quite well for us. everybody gets a small certification plaque, and it is somewhat of a recognized sort of driver approval process.
Makes sense.
Oh, I do want to say one thing about the movers really quick too. It's
Yeah.
fine that the best movers are getting good reviews, are consistently getting great raises for themselves, are consistently getting good tips. But looking at a mover holistically, making sure that they're not taking a $3,000 estimate, turning it into a $1,500 move, and then smashing and banging a bunch of furniture is not creating the best customer experience. And I think that's sort of like tip hawking behavior. So we definitely do pay attention to that when we look at people. Is like, we sent you out with a $3,000 estimate. That's great that you did in under $1,000, but now you've ruined your tip for yourself that you thought was going to be massive. And you've actually put yourself in a position where like now that customer is upset. So it's like fast, clean job, but like steady pace, guys. Not too slow, not too fast. Just don't hurt yourself, protect the furniture, do the job as quickly as you can.
Yeah, that's really important. I believe in having, that compensation pay to be able to reward guys when they do a great job, and attacking the training from all angles. You've got the virtual training. When we put our guys through training, they've got Trainual, where they go through all of our company processes and culture and, how we operate as a company. We've got the Tighten Up training program that just rolled out a couple months ago that shows all the different types of pieces of furniture that they need to get
I know
through.
a lot of people that have had I know 3 or 4 people personally that have had a lot of success with the Tighten Up training.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. A little bit of a shameless plug there, but I'm really glad to hear that feedback.
No, it's all good. As long as we can
striving for.
Photoshop over New City's logos into all the Tighten Up equipment, we're sort of like, we're oddly like proprietary. So let's figure out a way to make that happen.
Absolutely. Well, we can white label the dashboard and the platform, and then we actually just learned that JL Video, who I recently did a podcast with Jordan, they do have an AI ability now to overlay logos.
Oh, that's sick. I wonder
so,
like how somebody gets traded to a basketball team and like they already have like, we just got Josh Giddey from OKC and like he's already on social media, he's already got the Bulls jersey on. I'm like, this just happened like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. AI can do also. I know a lot of people getting their headshots touched up with AI to make them look as handsome or as pretty as they want to look. And like, I think Chad has an AI picture.
I actually texted him yesterday to say how good I texted Chad to say how good his picture looked in the Tighten Up lineup for your event. And he's like, man, AI does miracles. And and we just left the conversation at that.
That's right. And then, beyond just the virtual, it's still important to have that hands-on approach. I love the stage department that you have. We have guys, we have some designated vaults in our warehouse that we'll pull out. We don't have the luxury of a full apartment inside of our warehouse, but we've got the vaults and we can teach them how to pack those and wrap the furniture in there with just random hallway stuff that we've gotten over time. And
you can certainly load those vaults on the truck too. And you could unload into the truck and back into the vault. And
exactly. Yeah. Spend about a half a day just doing that, and then team them up with a buddy, like you said, or a mover mentor, and get them that hands-on experience and start them running boxes. And
everybody's going to be a runner at New City. Nobody's going to be we call it fixing the truck. I'm not sure why we do it in Chicago, but we call it like fixing the truck. And then like, nobody's going to be customer facing. Nobody's going to be wrapping. Nobody's going to be fixing the truck. If you're new here, dude, just run boxes, assist on 2-man carries, and just like watch what these folks are doing.
Yeah. What kind of incentive program do you have for your guys? Like, what kind of, like, do you do some kind of like a commission or a bonus or an incentive to hold them accountable? We have a system called Brother Bucks at our company. We reward them on 5-star reviews, some other metrics, but I'm curious to hear like what kind of performance pay do you offer for your teams?
So for every review, 5-star review, or for different things like driver safety and stuff, they will get an insertion into like a lottery, and you can get as many lottery tickets as you can accumulate. And then we give out things like $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 bonuses at the end of the month, which are really substantially different rather than the $5 per review or something like that. I mean, really, that's not so much life shattering for everybody. So we wanted to like consolidate it and make it really almost like an Illinois lottery sort of scratch off vibe to it, right? It's just like, I keep putting my name in this hat, and then we'll have mover barbecues once a month. And then the winner will be like, it's a life-changing, it's like a down payment on a car sort of deal. And it does move the needle in regards to the competitive atmosphere too, because of the amount of insertions that they would have.
I love that idea. And so if they perform well, they get one of these tickets and then they have the chance to win the big prize.
Virtual ticket goes into a virtual lottery. Virtual lottery gets pulled once a month when we're having the taco guy come with the sort of griddle thing and just like start cooking it up in the morning. You don't have to be present to win. I hope you are out on a job instead of coming in to eat tacos. So yeah, that's been something that has worked for us. I can tell you that New City Moving is a zero participation trophy company. You won't get paid an additional dollar for working on a Sunday. If you don't want to, we'll find somebody that will. You will not get paid an on time. I came to work when I was supposed to bonus. You've been in uniform for 30 days bonus. A uniform is expected. Coming on time is expected. Being pleasant with the customers is expected. If you have problems with any of these things, call us and we'll give you a shirt. Call us if you're running late and we'll make sure that we can hold up the crew for 5 or 10 minutes. Call us if you have a dispute with the customer and let the office handle it instead of arguing with the customer on site yourself. So besides a hangover, we have a cure to everything that could be a problem for you. You just need to go through the proper avenues and channels in order to find those things.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Don't get a bonus for doing the job that you're already getting paid for. Get a bonus for going above and beyond, and then lean on you to be able to cover those fundamentals and then get it done. I know during COVID, a lot of companies struggled with the hiring because the phone, was taking orders, phone calls were coming in. Anybody with a truck and a pulse could book moves back then. And the hardest part was getting good guys to work because there was a lot of handouts going on, from government, stipends and all this different stuff that, it was tough to get people to do physical work, and just the safety and the health scares that a lot of people had going into homes and getting out and doing a job that's very customer facing. And I've seen that really shift over the last year or two with most companies, that, the hiring seems to have improved, at least for us. Like, it's not as much of a struggle to find as many good people, but the lead volume has since, dropped.
Absolutely.
The economy has slowed down. I mean, have you experienced that? It sounds like you're still just crushing it with the leads and the bookings. And your biggest challenge is still, getting enough of that inventory, so to speak, not to, disrespect any movers. It's a very important customer facing job, but it sounds like you're a little limited on like the people that you can bring in, and your marketing is still working very well and you're still generating a lot of lead flow. Have you seen any kind of a dip or any of that kind of shift?
Lead flow, certainly. I think that this year we've increased rates about $10 per 2-man crew, 3-man crew, 4-man crew, and increased our rates by $10 for the above 4-man sort of rate, the additional man. So we have seen a 3.7% reduction in overall leads, even though we're on pace for $250,000 marketing spend over last year. So leads are definitely problematic, because when I say that we're generating an insane amount of leads, I'm saying that the lion's share of those leads in Chicago are apartment folks, and they want to move between the 25th and the 5th of the month. So our main thing is that we want to drive behavior for our consumers to be interested in using us that random shitty Monday through Thursday in the middle of the month, when like who the fuck in their right mind would move on, February 8th? Like that's not a prime move day. What the fuck is February 8th? It's like you'd have to be out of your mind to move on February 8th. So we're pricing that accordingly. And then a reason why we've had so much success with our drivers and movers is that we generally do relatively well during the winter in regards to willful employment. So we can carry 150, 160, 170 people with full-time jobs in the field during that time, just because we're not one of these sort of flash in the pan, like we kind of eat well when everybody else is doing well. We like to think of New City Moving as a whale, and like the whale starts at the top level, and then when the whale's belly's full, like the fish fall out of our mouths, and the medium fish come along, and then the bottom feeders, which are the Craigslist guys, and not to say Craigslist is a bad medium, just everybody knows what I'm talking about here, unlicensed, will change their phone number if you have a claim sort of guy. So like in the summer, when we're busy and booked up, you'll see other moving companies' trucks on the street more. But with us having that consistency of summer and winter, we tend to retain a top quality employee. Unless there's one that falls for one of my competitors saying, hey, Wade, I'll pay you $2 additional. And then it's like, hey, dude, sit down. I know that you got 2 young kids. I know your wife personally. in 90 days, this guy's going to screw you so hard and you're not going to have a job. Just let's think about what the $2 will get you over 52 weeks, over 365 days. And then let's actually look at the amount of moves that this gentleman has provided last year versus New City. And if we extrapolate that for them, there are going to be some movers that are like, but I just can't pass up that $2. And then at that point, maybe it's not best for us. But what we try to do is just ethically explain to them the high cost of, we do speak with them about the lifetime value of their wallet as a result of taking that extra dollar. Because not everything that glitters is gold.
That's right. That's right. And, the consistency, the culture, the quality of work, the reputation, that's a big one that people want to work for reputable companies. They want to be able to tell their friends and family on a, Sunday bowling outing or whatever, who they work for, and be proud to stand behind that. And, just because you get a couple extra bucks, you lose some of that sometimes in these companies, and you might not get the hours. I mean, yeah, it might
There's going to be no
great,
hours. You're going to be lifting yourself at 3 days a week with some random guy that just got off the bus. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, what's the cost of that?
Yeah, exactly. And it's teaching, people to see that. What would you say makes you the whale that you are, to kind of get first dibs at the big fish and then, let the other companies kind of pick it up? Do you think it's still the digital marketing? Are you doing any account work with corporate companies, or what keeps you consistent? I'm just curious on that.
Senior living facilities are huge for us. We have a huge contractor that's using us for a bunch of senior living facilities. We're working with pretty much every university in the Chicagoland and suburb area with doing their move in and move outs for college dormitories, which could be like 8 to 13 day projects. We allot an amount of boxes for people, and then we come and pick up all of the dorms, consolidate them in storage, keep them for 3 to 4 months, and then redeliver the students. So that's the sort of account work that keeps us busy. I wish we would have gotten into commercial, but commercial is largely union in Chicago. And I like the relationship that I have with my employees. And I like the free market sort of relationship that we have, where it's kind of like at will. And, I don't want to become the Chicago Teachers Union here. So we sort of let everybody else handle the more commercial stuff. And then in regards to the residential, I would say that it still has to be, man, we have a 62% repeat and referral rate. So if the internet were to break today, I think we're still good for about like 8,000 moves.
Wow.
So this is something I'll say to movers, right? Like, the longer that you're on the truck answering the phone for a moving customer and actually moving stuff yourself, the more that you're going to slow down your progress. The longer that you stay doing things like I was doing for the first 5 years and sort of all jack of all trades, right? Like, is going to stifle your progress. And then there comes a point where like you have to make a transition to a team, but you need to make sure that, just like you said earlier, we're not putting the cart before the horse. Because as moving company owners, when I got 60 trucks and when I got 70 trucks and 80 trucks, and then we went into Milwaukee, and I was just like, we are kings of Chicago. There will never be anybody that does it better. And we're going to do the same thing in Milwaukee. And then we got our asses handed to us, because I realized at that point that so much of the operation was dependent on me that I didn't change my ways. Like, I was never on the truck, but there are people listening to this that like, they're on the truck and they're answering calls. Hey, Wade, you need to book a move. Okay, let me call you back. And it's just not sustainable. And then doing all of the actions inside of your business when you scale is just not sustainable. And I found myself with a 15, 16, $17 million company. And I was the thought leader in every single area of the business and micromanaging every KPI and process without good processes in place. Thank God we've changed that. But without those processes in place, and it just was consuming. I used to scour the internet 50 times a day to see if we had a shitty 1-star review. And I used to obsess about it. And it's just not the way, man. Everything that we do, like long distance or storage or something like that, we always do in a very small way. So like, if long distance, if we try it and it doesn't work, it doesn't kill our local business. You know what I mean? Like, so we always try to like, let's get one truck and send it to Indiana or Ohio. And then if that works, and now we're up to 26 trucks, and they're traveling the entire United States from Denver, Colorado to New York. And then from Miami to Dallas is our sort of our service area. But we start out really small with that, because there's just no rush for us to say, hey, we got a bunch of money in the bank. Let's throw it all on black in Vegas and just go out and buy 26 trucks and just wing this thing. No, consumer determines the market. And if the market likes us, and if we dip our toe in the water, then we put our foot in, then we put our leg in. So we don't go all in on anything. We go all in on things that are proven, that are going to make us money, that have good net margin and gross margins, that are repeatable, that have a large enough consumer base looking for those things, that we know that we can find people to facilitate those things and facilitate them well.
That makes sense. And delegation is so important once you, especially at that level, because it's just going to bottleneck at you if you're the one making every single decision and being the thought leader and the strategist and everything else like that. And you've already touched on kind of what your team structure looks like. But I'm curious, like, are you leveraging AI or virtual assistants to help facilitate any of this stuff, like tracking KPIs or
Yeah.
automating things?
For all of that stuff, we've outsourced it to a wonderful team that we've hand built and hand selected from the Philippines. I got the idea from Stephen Reed at Big League Movers, who was doing something like this. And we started outsourcing a lot of the work that we have to highly intelligent, degrees in hospitality, master's degrees, affordable, pleasant to be around, happy staff members in the Philippines that are facilitating a lot of our repeatable stuff.
That makes sense. I mean, this podcast.
Long gone are the days of repeatable stuff for us. And as nice as AI is, I still like having this sort of human element to it. There's a bunch of different stuff like Smith AI and all this stuff that we can leverage that we just don't, just because the company was built on everybody in this industry is pushing people to an online detailed form, and we're going to be the people that call you. And we were like the first company, I think, in the Midwest to start doing virtuals, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. If anybody's listening was doing it before, I apologize. Just we'll put a little footnote down here. But like, we weren't competing with you. So we do like leveraging technology, but not at the point. Power BI is great, but like, I don't know. I like having the friendly face in the 9:15 morning meeting in order to verify those KPIs. While we're on the topic of KPIs, check those every month, guys. Like, if you can't do it daily, do it weekly. If you can't do it weekly, do it monthly. If you can't do it monthly, if you're sitting with your accountant at the end of the year and he's telling you how you did for the previous 365 days, even if it's good, it's bad.
Mm-hmm. What KPIs are the most important to you, Brian?
Let's go over a bunch. Talk to me about a department, and then I'll talk to you about some KPIs. So let's start with sales, right? Sales would be marketing spend against total leads generated is important for us. Booking percentage, time on phone, or speed to lead, I should say. Speed to lead is important. I would say monthly revenue by rep, daily revenue by rep, the revenue delta between phone estimates to virtual estimates, employee call time, employee call volume. I think those are some good ones.
Yeah, I agree. Those are definitely all ones that we look at. What about operations?
Operations KPI board would be, we look at total moves for the day on a 3-day projection. We look at the total amount of fleet that is up versus the fleet that's down. So how many trucks have retention, overnight retention? How many trucks are available and street ready for the day? And then how many are down and how long that they're down? We look at total amount of movers available on a day-by-day basis versus total amount of movers necessary on a day-by-day basis.
And you've built out like your own CRM.
We did, yeah, we did. And now I'm looking to take it to absolutely I started work on a project like 2 years ago, and we're looking to take it to the absolute next level. So there's people out there that build software, and I think that SmartMoving is great, SuperMoving is great, Movegistics is great. I don't know Move It Pro or anything like that. But in an ideal world, I would love to create something that can take somebody from $10,000 of startup to $25 million of revenue in the way that myself and a few other people see the world. So I don't know. Will that ever happen? I don't know. Just kind of doing the PE thing right now and on an earn out deal. So I'll be around for a while. But after that, who knows? I could be somewhere between building a CRM to opening up a Two College Brothers to drinking a coconut on an island. So I don't necessarily know where I'm going to be. I'm probably not the coconut on an island guy. But yeah.
Yeah, well, the coconut on the island is always a nice thing to do from time to time, to have the option to go do that. But, as entrepreneurs, we need fulfillment. We need a mountain to climb, I think, at all times, or else we're not happy. And
it was my kids that really got me to slow down. My marriage got me probably I was still working 92% as much as I was when I was a bachelor starting the company. And now maybe I'm working 80%. The reason why I started the company was because I didn't want to have the single mother, broken home, living on food stamps situation that I was in. So I was like, I need to prepare for my future family, my future wife, long before I even know who they are. And now that I'm doing that, I wouldn't be true to my why has always been providing for family, not just mine, but others. That's kind of like the gold standard and root cause of my why. When I started this company, I remember sitting with one of my employees named Samantha and one of my employees named Nick at a Thai restaurant in Lincoln Park. And they're like, well, why do you want to start this? And I was like, well, I'm going to start a local moving company. And now that I have the license, I'm going to earn $100,000 per year and I'm going to take care of my future family. It turns out that I'm taking care of my family. I'm now making $110,000 a year. And, but yeah, since that was my why, I think that I would be unauthentic to myself if I was still working 16, 17-hour days and my 3-year-old and 5-year-old didn't know who their fathers were. I had to return. Maybe for the first couple of years of their life, I was still the go, go, go guy. And then I needed to take my daughter to horse riding who has special needs, or I needed to take my son to a swim class. And like, I needed to really dust off the books of why, dust off the manual of how I started this thing and really realize what the why was. And that's like, if you're going to do it for family, you have to realize that even though you have the money now, I think it would be selfish for me to continue to aspire to be the richest person in the world at the expense of my family. Once you hit a certain point and you get to like your fuck you money, I like to work. Even if money wasn't attached to it, I would still work a lot, but not at the expense of family right now, you know?
Yeah, and life has seasons, right? Like there's a time for that grind to go pedal to the metal, 16-hour days every single day. But as you develop and as you start a family and your priorities shift and you're not truly wealthy unless you are wealthy in those areas that mean the most. And it sounds like you've really figured that out. While at the same time, to your point, like we have, I feel like this DNA inside of us to be building and creating and advancing and growing something or else, so it's finding that balance when you're in the right season to find that balance.
Shout out to ADHD, not mentioning I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to diagnose anybody, but shout out to at least 50 people that I met at the last Titan retreat that are right there with me in the ADHD boat.
I think I'm right there with you too. I think it's a superpower though, if you know how to channel it.
There's too many of us for it to be coincidence in the moving industry. And I'm not going to name any names, but all of my friends listening, 20, 30 people, you know who you are. We're going to be okay.
Yep. You just got to learn. You got to learn how to channel that because I mean, we've clearly evolved. There's some kind of a genetic component to the ADHD. I think that a lot of it's accelerated with, all the technology and stuff in our pockets these days. But I think that there's definitely a genetic trait that there's a reason that in a tribe of people, there has to have been a certain number of those people that had this ADHD mentality that could help innovate.
That created fire.
That started the fire. That finds
the wheel, right?
Yeah, hunt the whale. Explore new territories, and you just gotta embrace that. And you gotta learn how to channel it. And I'm not a doctor and expert on it either. I definitely know that I've got a touch of the ADHD myself, and so do most of the people that we all talk to. And I mean, we were just out with Tommy Mello in Arizona the other day, and he'll be the first to say he's got a terrible case of ADHD, but he's been able to build an empire with it, and he's figured out how to channel that stuff. And I think it's a superpower if you can acknowledge it and manage it and know how to channel it into the right areas. And then, ultimately achieve that balance that everybody's ultimately striving for. And the reason that we put ourselves through all this in the first place. But I mean, I have fun building businesses and I have a tendency to turn hobbies into businesses because I can't help myself.
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. Well, I'll look out. Are you affiliated with anything on the wiffle ball circuit? Are you coming out with a, Are you seriously? That was just a joke. Are you running your own thing?
I'm a partner. I'm not the full owner of this league, but I'm a partner in the Suncoast Wiffle League.
That's awesome.
So I started as a player and I wanted to get more involved. I just, like I said, can't help myself. Same thing with boating. I'm going to make a post on social media how I accidentally started a boating rental business because I wanted to buy a boat. I love being on the water. I love boating. But the only way I could justify that purchasing that kind of a toy that is usually a liability was to figure out a way to turn it into an asset. So I basically, there's an app like Airbnb for boat rentals that
That's
I
awesome.
got on. And a year later, since I bought it, we're like the top owner or whatever on there with the most reviews. And we dialed in all the marketing and the metrics on
I got
it.
a house in Naples, so I'll be down at your place soon. And I just need the friends and family discount for that boating.
Oh man, for you can come out. Well, I'll take you out. I'll let you borrow it if you want. Like, you don't have to
All
worry
I need
about
is a little bit of Chad and Wade.
Absolutely. Go fishing, catch some big fish or something like that. Well, we're running a little long on time here, Brian. I really want to continue this conversation, but I know you're a busy man.
All good, man.
Did want to touch a little bit on the private equity situation and what that process looked like. And
looked like 18 months.
18. Okay.
No, it's just, there's always minor things anytime that two teams of lawyers get together, and they made a mountain out of a molehill. But we were able to cut through it and get it done. And I have an earnout deal, which ties me to the company for a couple of years. And I share in the fruits of my labor for continuing to grow the organization. I do think that private equity is generally looking for people that want to stay on for the most part, at least during some transition period. And it was a strategic buyer. So they sort of reached out to me, and I could have went to the marketplace. However, I thought like a strategic buyer or somebody that knows the space will appreciate the fact that they can just sort of take the keys from me during the transaction and then just hand them back to me and say, like, I'm not going to say I'm like Dennis Rodman, but I didn't want too much oversight. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want a boss. So it just turned out that they were like, hey, let's do this thing. Let's take a couple chips off the table. And I was like, well, what's your vision for me? And then they're like, you just run the thing as you have, and we'll talk about your P&L once a month, but we're kind of largely going to leave you alone. And some people are looking for a growth partner, and I was kind of looking for like a leave me alone partner. And I was able to find that.
Yeah, and I know you and I have had some conversations. We've been on some calls with people like Tommy Mello. We'd love to put something together that can be an exit for people that ultimately want to exit, or just pour rocket fuel onto their growth and help them build an empire by, piecing together some kind of like a private equity roll up. Or
if anybody's listening, the main advantage, if you're an independent mover listening to Wade or going to the Titan retreats, this gentleman has a platform that if he decides to do this and this works out, you can attach yourself with him, and it gets a small and medium-sized mover noticed when you're part of a collective. And it gets you a higher multiple aligning yourself with that collective. So it's really a win-win if Wade and maybe Tommy Mello, and if these guys are able to pull this off, which I think if I was a betting man, I would put money on it. It really is a win-win for all parties involved. Yeah, there's no downside, really.
Yeah, and it's a way to basically, if you were to take your company to market and sell it, even if you've got your systems and processes dialed in, you maybe get a 4 to 6x multiple in most situations.
With storage, maybe a 6-time multiple. Yep.
Yeah, and if you can combine forces with companies in different markets and all get on the same page and put egos aside and truly, collaborate and partner and build an empire. If you IPO, you can get up to like a 30x multiple, but realistically, on a smaller scale, maybe for like the first round, so to speak, I mean, you could get at least a 10 to maybe even up to a 20x multiple by doing it with the right people and the right partners and bringing into the right people.
And you get eyeballs on you, right? Like private equity, these funds are 10, 15, $20 billion funds. And although what you've created that does a couple $1 million in revenue and maybe let's call it 300,000 in profit, although you've created a great brand, not you, Wade, just in general, like an independent company, right? If you've created a great brand and it's profitable, it still has to transition from job to scalable business. And combining yourself with a bunch of like-minded individuals, getting in a think tank, having a say, getting handed to you systems and processes that might be better than the ones that you're currently employing at an enterprise level. I don't know. It would be hard to say it would be hard for me in 2012 to say no to you if you were to approach me.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, I'm curious, just like what your experience, I don't know if you're willing to talk about like the structure of the deal or the milestones and the payouts that are part of the deal. You don't have to touch on that if that's
No.
confidential.
I wouldn't want to be braggy with the money aspect, but there was a closing portion, so cash in hand. And then there's 3 different milestones. So like the first year, there's a milestone for growth, and the second year is a milestone for growth. And then after the PE turns it to another PE, you get like a big kick at the end. When PEs typically hold these things, Wade, like 3 to 5 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you manage to get in, and then they sort of like they're always sort of leveling up from smaller PEs to mid-sized PEs to enterprise level PEs. And if you stay around for the jump, and if you grow the business well during that time, that you're handsomely rewarded, sort of at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yeah. And, it's a way to get out of a business that is otherwise sometimes difficult to get out of. Moving, it has a tendency to suck you in, for life, in a lot of situations.
I
And
doubled
it's
down.
important to
I
get that
started working
profitable.
harder, but at the same time, even the closing payment was enough for me to say that, God forbid I were to get in an accident on the way home, that my wife and kids would be taken care of for life, solely based on that closing amount. And then everything else being the icing on the cake is a blessing. We all at moving companies run the risk of, God forbid, one of our employees giving the middle finger to a state senator out of the window, or one of our employees unfortunately running into somebody on the side of the road, right? And we carry with us such liability that when you start getting what's called a nuclear verdict, you do run the risk of like massive PR, or like when you have 138 trucks out on the road, the chances that everything's going to go well every day is just like there's risk to that. And I took some of that risk and I gave it to somebody that has much higher insurance levels and a much better legal team
Makes
than what
total
I'm
sense.
able to afford.
And so how much longer do you have in the current deal that you're in, and what's next for Brian Slater? I mean, where do you want to go once it phases out?
I don't know. If you asked my wife, she would say that she wants me to do consulting in the moving space and sort of on an equity share, continue to grow people's businesses. I could think of maybe 30 moving companies that I couldn't help, but I could think of like 7,000 that I could just be like, give me 10% of revenue growth and I'll take your $2 million company and turn it into an 8 in 3 years. Like, as long as market specific, of course, Wade. Like, I'm not going to turn somebody, I don't know Nebraska. I'm sure it's a fine state, but I don't know what the population is there. But if I had to say, like, maybe I couldn't help you in Nebraska. But if there were people in like the Floridas or the New Yorks or the Bostons or the Californias, and if I did get into this sort of private consulting, I think it's fine. I don't know, I might consider it. I want to stay associated to the moving space somewhat because I think that I've acquired so much domain knowledge that I wouldn't want to lose it. I think it's like a muscle, right? Or it's like speaking Spanish. If we were
Mhm.
speaking Spanish every day since we were kids, Wade, and then I moved to the States and I came back to visit you, my Spanish probably wouldn't be the same. So I think it's like a muscle that I want to continue to exercise. And I think at the same time, I would love to help out people. I think there's great people in the moving space, namely, I hate to say this again, but namely Titan Retreat, right? It's getting together a bunch of like-minded people. I felt a little bit of a exhilarating rush when I was listening to a Tommy Mello or a veteran like Larry O'Toole. I felt a little bit of a charge. And if that's how I felt, I'm guessing this must have been like, some people must have been bug-eyed at this sort of stuff. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I would love to build a CRM. I would love to get into the consulting space in a small way and really make somebody into a hitter. If somebody were to approach me and say, "Hey, I think you'd be a great guy to get under the hood and see if moving companies have the DNA, the culture, the systems and processes that match their P&Ls for private equity," I think I'd be great at that. I don't know. TBD.
Well, exciting to watch. And there's a million more questions I want to ask, but for the sake of time, we're going to have to continue that conversation afterwards. And you're going to be speaking at the Moving Titan Retreat. You'll be up there on stage in October and sharing a lot more insight, having a lot of those private conversations, individually with groups and with people one-on-one. So really looking forward to connecting more at that. And then, of course, talking in the meantime. But what's the best way to get a hold of you, Brian, if anybody wants to reach out personally and ask questions or continue that conversation in the meantime?
I would say to just check me out on LinkedIn. I'm not going to pull an Eric Works. Here you go, Eric. Are you listening? I'm not going to pull an Eric Works. My cell phone number is 773-269-8669. Mic drop.
Oh, well, it might blow up. Be careful what you wish for. But maybe that'll open the doors for some of these other future endeavors in consulting or otherwise. So
absolutely. No, I love Eric, and I was joking around about that with him over text. So,
and that's actually Eric's cell phone number that he gave
that
out.
That is. Let me grab Eric's really quick. No, I'm just messing. If anybody wants to reach out to me, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Love it.
I think LinkedIn is probably the best space. I read it, not enough to be annoying. I like just, as you can tell, the reason why we were set up for an hour and we're well over it is because, man, buy me a Jack and Coke at the Titan event. And I love talking. Moving has given people like me and you and Eric and my friend Stephen Reed, it's given us such amazing lives. I don't say that we could not have gone out to do something different. We're all very wise, intelligent individuals. But I think that I would like to give back to moving in the same way that it's given to me over the years, whether that be the CRM route or the consulting route or something like that. I have a love, it's an abusive relationship, but I have a love for moving.
Yeah, I get it. I
don't know why.
And it just, there's just something about it. Yeah. Well, Brian, this has been awesome. You clearly have the passion and the insight, the knowledge, the experience. I mean, so many different things, so many more things I want to talk about, but that'll have to be either a part 2 or we'll just have to go offline.
Took us 2 years to get this together. So let's plan it now for 2026.
Sounds like a plan. I'll be excited to see where we're at in 2026. Doing big things, man. So thanks for coming on the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. You got a cell phone number. And as long as you could reach out to me with any other questions as well. And looking forward to seeing everybody in a couple of months. And stay tuned. And thank you for joining the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for a Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.